It was the kind of morning that felt like peace itself, with the mist rising gently off the lake, the scent of pine drifting through the open window, and the faint sound of loons echoing across the water. For the first time in years, I felt home. I had bought the old lake cabin after years of working 2 jobs and saving every dime. To me, this place was more than just property, it was freedom. But to the local HOA Broken Bar, it was apparently a problem. They'd been at me since the day I moved in, sending letters about community standards, unapproved renovations, and non-compliant landscaping. The funny part, my cabin wasn't even part of their home. My land had been privately owned long before their precious subdivision existed. But that didn't stop Karen, the self-appointed queen of the Hope, from trying to control everything within a 5-mile radius. I'd ignored the warnings, the notes on my door, even the pictures they took of my driveway. But what happened that Saturday morning at Broken Bar I'll never forget. I was expecting an important guest, as the state attorney general himself, Daniel Cole. He wasn't just a high-ranking official, he was an old college friend who'd become one of the most respected legal minds in the state. He'd heard about the ridiculous harassment I was facing and wanted to meet me at the cabin to discuss possible violations of property rights and harassment laws. The moment I saw his car pull up, relief washed over me. Finally, someone who could help me put an end to this nightmare. But just as we sat down at the kitchen table, with coffee steaming between us and my file of whole letters spread out, we heard a loud crash outside. "Is someone breaking in?" Daniel asked, rising halfway from his chair. Before I could answer, the door flew open with a bang, and in stormed Karen, flanked by 2 of her whole board members. Her face was flushed, her voice shrill with authority she didn't have. "This property is under violation," she screeched, waving a clipboard like it was a royal decree. "You've been warned multiple times, and since you refuse to comply, we are performing an inspection." "An inspection?" I snapped, standing between her and Daniel. "You can't just barge into my home." Karen looked me up and down with disdain. "The HOA has every right to ensure community integrity. You can't have this unapproved dock, that illegal fire pit, and She froze mid-sentence. Her eyes landed on Daniel, who stood calmly from the table, straightening his jacket. "And you are?" she demanded, voice still dripping with arrogance. Daniel smiled politely, extending his hand. "Daniel Cole, State Attorney General." The color drained from her face faster than a receding tide. "Oh, yeah, Broken Bar, I wasn't aware. Yeah, I can tell," Daniel said evenly. "Now, you said this was an inspection conducted without a warrant or property consent?" The room went so quiet you could hear the hum of the refrigerator. Karen stammered, "Well, technically, the HOA," Daniel interrupted, his tone turning firm, "has no jurisdiction over this parcel. It's not included in their covenant, and forcibly entering private property constitutes trespassing. Would you like to continue explaining, or shall I call the sheriff right now?" Her lips quivered. The 2 board members behind her looked ready to melt into the floor. Karen tried to backtrack, muttering something about a misunderstanding, but Daniel wasn't done. He motioned for her to step outside, where he explained calmly but decisively that her actions could result in serious legal consequences. Meanwhile, I stood in the doorway, watching years of pent-up frustration dissolve into a feeling I hadn't had in a long time: vindication. Afterward, Daniel and I sat back down. "You handled that better than I would have," I admitted with a shaky laugh. He smiled. "People like her count on intimidation to get their way. Once someone stands up to them with the law behind them, their power vanishes." The sheriff arrived not long after, taking statements from everyone. Karen tried to downplay what happened, but the body cam footage from Daniel's security detail spoke volumes. Within 2 weeks, the HOA received a formal cease and desist order, and Karen was forced to resign from her position. But the best part, the case prompted a broader investigation into the HOA's practices, uncovering years of overreach, harassment, and even misuse of residents' dues. Daniel's office launched a reform initiative that protected homeowners from unlawful HOA behavior statewide. Months later, the cabin was finally quiet again. The lake glistened in the morning sun, undisturbed. As I sipped my coffee on the porch, I thought about how easily fear can grow when no one stands up to it, and how fast it fades when someone does. Karen had tried to control everyone around her because she believed her authority was absolute. But that day, when she busted into my cabin, she learned that power without respect isn't power at all. It's a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. As for me, I learned something too. Peace doesn't come from hiding from bullies, it comes from facing them, armed not with anger, but with truth. And on that still lake, surrounded by pine trees and freedom, I finally had both.